Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock. We are sitting here at, I almost called it First Energy Stadium, Huntington Bank Field. The Browns losers today, 23-16 to the Ravens, our post-game podcast. Going to keep it a little brief today. It's about 12:30 in the morning here. So we got a Kevin Stefanski Zoom in like 12 and a half hours. So we probably should wrap this thing up relatively quickly. But there is a lot to get to from this football game. But of course, the overarching headline, the big story, Mary Kay, is Shedeur Sanders' debut. And on top of that, the likelihood that he's going to make his first start next week in Las Vegas because Dillon Gabriel has a concussion. We know that protocol it can take some time to get through. You've made this point in various places already, just this idea that, even if he clears the protocol, is he going to be able to practice, the game plan, all of that stuff. So it feels like, at least to some degree, the Shedeur Sanders era has begun. What did you think today? What did you think of what you saw from Shedeur? Let's just start there.
Well, I think it was really tough for him to have to come in these conditions when he has never had a first team snap before with Jerry Jeudy or Ethan Posage. I think I know he had two backup tackles on that potential game winning drive. That could not have been easy. I just think it was a very, very tough situation to get thrown into. And I do actually think that he will fare better when they devise a game plan for him and when he has a full week of practice with the starters. So, I think we cannot judge him too much off this game is what my biggest takeaway is.
Yeah, it's so hard. Look, there were things that we saw that I think we kind of expected in a lot of ways from Shedeur. It's things we've been talking about, right? How's he going to deal with pressure? Is he going to be able to protect the football? He got strip sacked once. He threw an interception, had another near, and Kyle Hamilton's going to not want to play here anymore. All he does is drop interceptions when he plays here. Almost threw another one. Also, look, on that final drive, made a nice throw to Harold Fannin, really nice throw to Gage Larvidan that got broken up. So, there was some good, there was a lot of bad. And Ashley, to Mary Kay's point, this was just a tough spot for him to come into. And the Ravens clearly just decided, and Joe Bitonio pointed this out, at least up until the final drive, it was just going to be pressure all day against Sanders.
Yeah, I think that is kind of like the known perceived weakness of him across the league. And obviously, I think the last time we saw him in the preseason, that was something that was still evident when, again, he played behind an offensive line in that game where nobody went on to make the team. But this was a game where he had to come into the game, with the game plan for somebody else, which we talked about that when they decided to make him the backup quarterback, that this was a possibility. When you're a backup, you have to go in and execute the game plan that they laid out for Dillon Gabriel coming into this week. And it is just a very different situation. And on top of that, there was offensive line adversity because both Cam Robinson and Jack Conklin left this game with injuries. So they were rotating tackles. That tackle carousel that's been going all year was going again today. And I definitely think that played a factor in terms of the pressure that was getting to him. And we saw he just didn't handle that pressure the best in terms of some of these big yardage losses.
Yeah, and I think, Mary Kay, I guess when we talk about Shedeur Sanders, this idea of is he ready, right? Is he ready to be the starter? And I think we've talked about, was he ready to be the backup, right? Or should they have gone a different direction there? Obviously, they left themselves a little bit short intentionally when they traded Joe Flacco a couple weeks ago, when they traded Kenny Pickett at cutdown day or right around cutdown day. So they kind of made this conscious choice that, they were going to go with first Dillon Gabriel as the backup, and then they just sort of promoted everybody and traded Joe Flacco, and Shedeur was the backup. They kind of put themselves in this spot. And I guess with Shedeur, I walked away from this game feeling like I still don't know if he's ready. You know what I mean? I felt like the processing was a little slow. I felt, again, the pressure, some of the decisions he made, the bad throws. But the thing you get with Shedeur is if you protect him, if you give him time, and if he feels confident about what he's seeing, he can deliver a really nice football, which is not something you were getting a lot of with Dillon Gabriel. So I don't think it's going to look better. I really don't. But I do think Shedeur has that ability to make like 3 throws in a football game that are going to make you think, man, there's something there with this guy.
Absolutely. And that will be the confusing part, because you have to determine if that is going to be sustainable, if that's going to hold up over time, and how that's going to look. But he does have that elite accuracy. And when he does have that time to throw, he really does have tremendous ball placement. He can vary the speed, he can vary the arm angles, he can lob it when he needs to. He can lift it over a defender. He just has an uncanny knack for placing the ball where it needs to go and making it really easy for his receivers to catch it. And that's important because these guys have been dropping a lot of passes and it's been a tough sledding for the wide receivers. And I think that if they did get some time with Shedeur Sanders, that they would probably appreciate the fact that he knows how to deliver the ball in such a way that they're going to be able to catch it and they will be finding more completions. But you have to get to that point. You have to get to that point and you can't be retreating. And he did that twice. He reverted twice to retreating, once for 11 yards, once for 14. And we know that he was strip sacked on the one. So if you're not going to have the explosive plays to make up for it, like Drake May did in New England, it's going to be tough to have someone that is going to be getting sacked on every single drive. So these are some things to consider going forward. But I do think that they will devise a game plan that he feels good about heading into the Raiders game, and that I think that there will be improvement.
Well, and the good news is you're facing a bad Raiders team. Now, I don't have their defensive rankings in front of me, and they play tomorrow night. They play Monday. Actually, they play later tonight against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. So at the very least, he's getting a start against a team that, even though they have Max Crosby, and they're going to, the book is going to be pressure this guy until he proves he can handle it, right? So I'm sure they're going to try that. But they just don't have what Baltimore has. Even with Marlon Humphrey out of this game, they just don't have the pieces that Baltimore has to bring a bunch of pressure and still hold up in the back end and all of those things. So he's got that working for him, Ashley. So the Browns get to sort of game plan around some of his shortcomings. And he's not going against the Baltimore Ravens in this football game. He's going against a bad Raiders team.
Yeah, I do think, again, that game planning is just so important. Like, it would be important for any rookie, but I think at this stage for Shedeur Sanders, having that full week essentially is going to help him. And, as we sit here on early Monday morning, I don't know how long Kevin Stefanski would drag out a starter announcement. With them, you really
I'm
never
dreading it
know.
already.
Yeah, like I'm dreading the discussion around it already, but I hope for Shedeur's sake internally that they at least know where things are trending fairly early in the week. Mary Kay obviously laid out, I think, like why it's more likely than not that he would start, given how the protocol works. I think that makes sense. But what I would also caution in terms of it's a bad Raiders team. It was a bad Raiders team last year when they went there, and this team historically over the Kevin Stefanski regime has not really been able to win on the West Coast. So while it may look like a quote unquote easier game, we've seen this team in similar situations before too, and it hasn't gone well for them.
So I think too, the bigger picture that complicates this, Mary Kay, and one of the things, like, we've all been getting asked on any radio show, anything we do, I've been asking you guys on this podcast about this quarterback plan, right? Getting a look at Shedeur Sanders, all of that stuff. And I always felt like, I know everybody was in a rush to throw Shedeur out there. I think we were all sort of on the same page, which is weird. I seen some of our texters and some other people be like, well, this is what you guys wanted. Not really. But I think we've all sort of been on board with this idea of give Dillon a little time here. And then at some point, you're still going to have plenty of time to take a look at Shedeur. This makes things interesting because let's say Shedeur goes out and struggles against Vegas. And, I think he deserves the same sort of leeway that we've given Dillon Gabriel with his struggles. So let's say he goes out and struggles against Vegas. And then we're in a situation where Dillon is starting to come out of the protocol. And then maybe you're going to hand things back to Dillon Gabriel, or maybe you're going to decide to stick with Shedeur. I just think the way this all happened, because it happened with injury and it's likely going to keep Dillon out another game, it just makes this more awkward than I think the Browns wanted it to be in trying to get a look at both of these quarterbacks.
Absolutely 100%. Because really the game plan was to stick with Dillon Gabriel as long as they possibly could, as long as it made sense, and then probably turn things over to Shedeur with maybe 3 games left, 4 games left, something like that. Give Dillon a nice on-ramp, see what they had in him, see if he didn't fare better with Tommy Rees calling the plays for him. And that was basically the game plan. And now the script has flipped. And now who knows what's going to happen? I think it will depend on how Shedeur Sanders plays in Las Vegas. If he plays well, if he's moving the ball, if he's putting points on the board, if the receivers are faring better, and if he's finding completions, then I think he is going to get a longer look himself, because no one's going to want to go back to a passing game that is basically dysfunctional. So it's going to be incumbent upon Shedeur to try to do everything he possibly can to show off that elite accuracy and to have it translate into a game. But it's also got to be coupled with all of the other stuff, including, not going backwards 14 yards.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't, I was thinking about this. Tyrod Taylor, right? He got concussed in that third game, that Jets primetime game. Baker Mayfield comes in. They win the game. They never look back that season, right? Baker Mayfield's just the guy. This obviously wasn't that. But there is a scenario, Ashley, where maybe Shedeur comes out next week, shows some signs of life, and does at least make it a difficult decision if Dillon Gabriel comes out of that protocol. Because the reality is Dillon was not very good again today. And he made a really nice throw to Said Tillman. Maybe his best throw, second best throw since he's taken over as a starter. But this passing game was not moving with Dillon Gabriel either. So it's not like it's just, oh, you have to go back to Dillon Gabriel because he was playing so well. It's like, well, he wasn't playing well. And then if Shedeur were kind of to the point, like you were saying, Mary Kay, if Shedeur can just move the football and just instill some confidence in these receivers, that's a low enough bar that you'd have to at least consider sticking with him. And that's sort of where the Browns are right now.
Yeah, Dillon was 7 of 10 today, 68 yards, took 1 sack, and 88.8 rating. So fine, but again, nothing really wow, I don't think, in his performance. So if Shedeur can find that, I think that's what we were talking about earlier, right? He does have the ability to make some of those wow plays. And how heavily are you going to weigh that? And look, I thought as that second half went on, I thought he looked a bit more comfortable. I know guys were talking about that in the locker room. Obviously, they couldn't get it done on that final drive, but they had chances. And I mean, it did feel like watching him, they were taking more of those shots downfield. Now, again, I think some of that is out of necessity, right? You're in that 2-minute drill situation and you're trailing and you're trying to at least tie, if not win the football game at that point. But I do feel like that tendency that he has to make some of those explosive plays, you're going to be taking the good with the bad with him. And how heavily are they going to weigh that good versus, Dillon making fewer of those explosive plays?
Yeah, and if they can figure out a way to run the football, and there were some signs today, they got some decent running today, 17 for 59 for Quinshon Judkins, but there were some runs there, and Dylan Sampson had a big run too. He had a 19-yarder, so there were some runs there, and if they can get that run game going against the Raiders, and again, I've done no research on the Raiders. I don't know if they're a good run defense or not, so I apologize for that. But if they can get that run game going against the Raiders and at least give Shedeur a chance in some play action stuff, at least make it so that the Raiders have to kind of come up and respect the run game, maybe that'll open some things up for him, give him a little more time, because again, the thing that just stood out to me today is it did look slow. It didn't look like he was, zinging through his reads there or really trusting what he was seeing downfield. And hopefully with a week of game planning, if they can run the football a little bit, kind of take some of that load off of him, that'll help kind of ease things, and he can actually make some more throws like he did to Gage Larvidan.
I think it's going to make a huge difference. I really do. I think it's going to make a very, very big difference for them to take out some pages of the playbook that they think will be very well suited to Shedeur Sanders and give him a pared down game plan so that he can really, really focus in on the things that he can do well in this game and find the completions that he needs to find. But I do want to bring something else up too, and that is the fact that Dillon Gabriel was getting booed out there.
Yeah.
And
Which I
Shedeur,
think we all expect. I mean, we all
right,
kind of expected that. Not that it's
exactly.
okay, but I think we all kind of expected that if the offense looked bad.
Right. And there were two occasions on which they made it into the red zone and had to kick field goals, and then almost into the red zone for the third field goal. So they were settling for field goals. He was getting booed when he was off on third down throws, and he was off again. And it's hard to understand why he's off when it seems like he has time to throw. It's like he's not settling in or just playing with as much confidence as he needs to. And so it'll be interesting to see if they are willing to go back to him. And I think Shedeur will have a lot to do with that, depending on how he plays. But Shedeur Sanders did come out and stand up for Dillon Gabriel after the game and basically say, it hurts the team when people are booing him. He didn't use those words, but we knew what he was talking about. It hurts the team. I mean, there were chants, we want Sanders, we want Sanders. And Shedeur is a good teammate, and his teammates really, really like him a lot. He's a team player, and he's popular in that locker room, and those guys like him a lot, and that's one of the reasons why. I mean, he understands this game and friendship and camaraderie and teammate and brotherhood and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really cool that he came out and he stood up for Dillon Gabriel and basically urged fans not to be booing him and making him uncomfortable when he's out there trying to play this very hard position.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at these quarterback stats while you're talking, and like Shedeur, 4 of 16 for 47 yards, a 13.5 rating, and Dillon Gabriel, 10 pass attempts, 68 yards. I just, the passing game has been so bad, and I think that leads to like the other part of this whole story, and Joel Bitonio called it the story of their season, and I think it's the right way to put it, is just this idea of, we're going to get to the end of this season, and I don't know what their record is going to be. I mean, they're 2-8 now. It's over. We knew it was over, but like, it's over now. Maybe not officially, but it is. And we're going to get to the end of this season. And obviously the young quarterbacks have been a story, and they should be a story. They should be the story. But Ashley, we're going to get to the end of this year, and we're going to be talking about Myles Garrett maybe winning Defensive Player of the Year, and Carson Schlesinger maybe winning, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Maybe Carson Schlesinger is a Pro Bowler. Maybe he's an All-Pro in his rookie year. Of course, Myles Garrett is going to win all those awards. Denzel Ward, maybe he makes another Pro Bowl, right? Maybe there's some other guys. We've talked about Grant. We've talked about some other players on this roster on that defensive side that have been so good. And I think we're going to get to January, and we're going to really take a look at this and be like, man, they wasted just this incredible defense. And Mary Kay, you've said Super Bowl caliber from, I don't know, back at training camp, right? And today was another one of those days where you had a pick six and you picked off Lamar Jackson another time, and you did a great job defensively. Yes, gave up a big pass to Zay Flowers and gave up that touchdown to Mark Andrews. But that shouldn't be, those things happen in football. Those shouldn't be the things that, break a team. But this offense just keeps leaving these opportunities out on the field. And we're going to get to the end of this year, and it's going to be like, I can't believe they wasted that defense.
Yeah, the way I wrote it after the game is like, the offense is so bad that there is just no margin of error for this defense in a way that, to your point, Dan, is just kind of unrealistic. I mean, occasionally even the best defenses are going to give up explosive plays. And we kind of know what this defensive system is prone to, and teams using their aggressiveness against them, which I thought the Ravens did really well today on the fake tush push play, and knowing the situation and what the Browns and Jim Schwartz were going to try to do. But look, Tillman said after the game, it's embarrassing when he got asked about them not scoring any touchdowns today. I mean, again, all their points came off of the Andre Schmidt 3 field goals and the Devin Bush pick 6. And it just is leaving no room for error. And, I think the defensive guys are still doing their best to not point the fingers, but each passing week when we hear guys, and like Grant Delpit is one of those guys, he talks to us every week. And today, like, I wondered, is this like starting to get to him? Just the demeanor of when I asked him about this and asked him about what said, and he said, we're playing our expletives off and we're doing all we can to get them the ball back. And I get the situation they're in. I do think they are trying their best to hold this together, but I also agree this year is just wasted. This is such a good defense. And, I think when you have Myles having another 4-sack game and you take the ball away from Lamar Jackson multiple times, how can you not win the football game in that situation?
And you had a special teams turnover.
Yeah.
So like you had the 2 Lamar interceptions and you had a special teams turnover and you lost the football game. And this is just becoming the same thing over and over again. And you have to, like, these guys aren't going to quit, but man, it's going to be hard to take on Josh Allen in the middle of December when he comes here and you're out of the playoffs and your offense is scoring 17 points a game. It's like playing defense is hard in the NFL. And it is interesting that Grant kind of started to lean that way a little bit because we have reached that point in the season, like I said, where I think it's going to hit guys. Like, it's going to be hard to talk themselves into this thing. And I don't think this defense is going to start just all out pointing fingers. I just don't think that's in their DNA necessarily, but they've got to be frustrated, Mary Kay.
Well, they're absolutely 100% frustrated, but I actually think that if Dillon Gabriel had been able to finish the game, that they may have had a chance to win this game, a better chance to win this football game, because they were moving the ball. They were moving the ball and they were getting down into the red zone. And now, of course, some of it was because Devin Bush got them down into the red zone, or, not Devin, but I mean,
Grant recovered the fumble.
The fumble, the muffed punt down at the 9. So they weren't not doing it all on their own, but I still think that having to go to Shedeur Sanders cold like that in the second half of the game was the kiss of death. It was going to be really, really hard for them to move the ball and do anything with this offense with Shedeur Sanders getting thrown in there. The minute he came in, I really thought, I didn't think this was going to be, this is Baker Mayfield coming in off the bench. Right. Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick. Shedeur Sanders is a 5th-round pick who had a long, long learning curve. And he's coming up the learning curve. And like I said, I think he's going to play a lot better in Las Vegas. But I do think that they would have had a chance for this upset. It was shaping up to be a potential upset until Dillon had to leave the game. Now, of course, he was going to have to convert some of those red zone opportunities and some of the 3rd down opportunities, because he was 0 for 6 on 3rd down when he left the game. So they were going to have to really improve in those areas. But I just think that at that point, they almost had no chance.
Well, yeah, and on offense, you can't have the negative plays. You can't have, the situations, again, where Shedeur's running backwards and he's taking sacks and, he had the grounding. Now, to be fair, Dillon had a grounding in the end zone in New England. Like, he certainly has had his issues, but the one thing with Dillon Gabriel is he wasn't making, for the most part, the New England game was just a disaster overall for him. But outside of that game, he at least hasn't been making the big mistakes. So he at least gave you a chance to sort of play the way they want to play, which is play great defense, keep forcing turnovers on Lamar Jackson. In this game, they had the lead for a little while. So see if you can hold that lead and control the football a little bit. He at least gives you a chance to sort of play that Iowa Hawkeyes football, which is the way they've managed to win games this season. And, with Shedeur, it wasn't working.
Yeah, and it's a game plan for him, and what Dillon Gabriel does well. And as we've kind of laid out, these guys are different players, and I think they do different things well, and that's difficult. But also the flip side of that to me is, how many plays have we seen from Dillon so far where they should have been turnovers? I know there's that turnover-worthy play stat on PFF. I'm not quite sure what he'll be up to after today, but at least early on in some of his starts, teams were dropping some interceptions. Obviously that happened today as well, just in general in this game with the Baltimore Ravens. So it is an interesting question, but I think it does just, for me, come back to this was a game plan designed for him. He came in today knowing he's starting. All of those intangible things that for rookie quarterbacks I think are really important.
Well, and the good thing is at least you have a half of film now where Tommy and Kevin and and Bill Musgrave, they can sit down with Shedeur and say, this is what we're talking about. This is the stuff you can't do. Because you can't look, running the scout team's great. It's been good for him, but it's not playing the Baltimore Ravens on a Sunday afternoon at Huntington Bank Field. So it's a big deal that he had this opportunity. And now let's see if they can clean up some of that stuff, clean up some of those mistakes. We do need to spend just a little more time on Myles Garrett because last week it was in New England. We finished the post-game pod in New England, and I realized that we hadn't talked about Myles Garrett at all because there was so much else going on. He had 5 sacks in that game. Mary Kay, 4 more sacks today. The way he's playing right now after signing that contract, after, making the trade request and recommitting to the Browns, he has put his money where his mouth is. Is that the right phrase? Did I phrase that right? It's late. Okay. He's put his money where his mouth is, and he's playing great. And this is sort of the season. I've called it the Pro Football Reference page season where, in 20 years, we're going to look at his Pro Football Reference page and be like, oh yeah, I remember that year. Mm-hmm. You've mentioned defensive coaches who have said there's more to Myles' game. Mm-hmm. This feels like that year. What we're watching from Myles Garrett, and some of these sacks these are third down sacks. There were no cheap sacks today. It's been great to watch. This is a defensive player of the year type season right now.
It really is. It's mind blowing how well he's playing. It really is. I really 100% think that he is going to obliterate the sack record. 22 and a half sacks. It's shared by Michael Strahan and TJ Watt. And I think he is blowing past that. He's already at 15, and there are 7 games left. So hopefully I'm not jinxing him, but I think he's got a great shot at that. And I went back and looked at his rookie goals, and that was one of them. He really, really wanted that. Now those individual goals don't mean anywhere near as much to him as victories and playoffs and Super Bowl and those kinds of things. But that was one of the things that he had set his sights on. And I think he's not only going to get that, but I think it's going to be really, really hard to keep him away from NFL Defensive Player of the Year again, even though the Browns are having such a losing season. Generally, you like to give that to someone who is having a unbelievable team season and making the playoffs and going deep into the playoffs. But I just don't know that you would be able to justify not giving it to him again this year, because this is such a dominant season. The one that I know we all knew he had in him, right? This is the best season of his career. Yeah. It's the best. And you just can't deny that. And I do feel horrible for him that it is coming in such an awful season, just based on, it seems like he knew that this was going to be like this year. And it's really too bad, because it's one of the most dominant seasons of any defensive player anywhere at any point in history. It's just, and we are witnessing it, and it's going for nothing.
Yeah, he's, like you said, 15 sacks, 7 games left. Does he have another 4 or 5 game sack game in him? Like, it just wouldn't surprise me if we're talking about this. What if we're talking about it next week? If he has 4 sacks against Geno Smith or Kenny Pickett or whoever the Raiders decide to roll out there against the Browns. So it's just been incredible to watch, Ashley. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We're going to be sitting there in January and be like, I can't believe that the Browns had a guy who had 27 sacks and they won 5 games. I don't even know if they're going to win 5 games. They won 4 games, whatever it ends up being. It's just going to be like, I can't believe that.
Yeah. And I think part of this next step for Myles is continuing this production to close out the season. And look, it's obviously not ideal circumstances. They are essentially out of it in terms of the playoff hunt or whatever. And I think that's been almost like one of the other missing pieces of his career. I think you can look at the postseason as a whole, right? He's only got a couple of chances at that. And then last time people saw him in that wild card game, he didn't get a sack. He didn't really disrupt the game. But the other missing piece is this idea of, can he continue that production and continue to be disruptive and not have a drop off? And look, in other years, there were reasons for his drop offs. The shoulder when he got into the car accident in 2022, the year he got COVID and everything, and that kind of lost something in his game for him. The year he was playing on like one leg in 2021 because of it was either groin or a hamstring. I remember Aaron Rodgers talking about it after that Packers game in 2021, right? Like there were these little things that were nagging or bothering him in some way. And even the year he won Defensive Player of the Year, there wasn't really anything that year that you could pinpoint and say, oh, this was bothering him. At least he wouldn't give a reason. We know that shoulder, it seemed like it was acting up. But he didn't want to blame it on that, so we weren't going to blame it on that either. But I really am curious to see, can he continue that production down the stretch? And I mean, if he does, he's going to do what Mary Kay said. He's going to get that sack record.
Okay. Orange and Brown Talk podcast, post-game edition. Browns losers today in Cleveland. I almost said in Baltimore. Like I said, it is 1 a.m. here. We're hanging on by a thread. Browns losers in Cleveland to the Ravens. They are now 2-8 on the season. They head to Las Vegas next week. The F1 race is going to be there. It's going to be an absolute circus in Las Vegas next week. But of course, we will be there. We'll have our post-game pod. So get subscribed to Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Find our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns, on cleveland.com, and our socials, Orange and Brown Talk on Instagram and Orange Brown Talk on Twitter. For Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.